made himself of no reputation.
So this is where we are coming to. He made himself of no reputation. He made himself. He was not made. Take note of that. He made himself
Of
of
no,
no reputation. Which means he did what?
he made himself to be a man.
He made himself to be a man.
Yeah,
He made himself of no reputation.
exactly.
It means, yeah?
To be no one, no one prolific, no one noticeable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that people can call him Pastor.
yeah.
Pastor Jesus.
Or rabbi back
People can call him Rabbi Jesus.
then. Yeah,
People can call him Prophet Jesus.
yeah.
People can call him,
Whatever.
Brother Jesus. Because he made himself that way. He made himself of no reputation. He stripped himself of deity
Yeah.
to become a man.
And took upon him the form of a servant,
That's what he did.
and was made in the likeness of men.
Wow. What a mighty God we serve.
Hallelujah.
This is act of mercy. The act of mercy. When the strong made himself to become weak
Yeah.
for our sake. Glory to God.
Glory to God.
The strong made himself to become weak for our sake. To be in the likeness of men. So now you see some people classify him as one of those men that lived. Because he made himself in that way.
Yeah.
Because of mercy. Because of mercy. So we look at him and we see an ordinary man. We look at him, we see a man who is just like any other person. But he made himself that way.
Yeah.
He made himself of no reputation. That's what the Bible is saying. Philippians 2:7.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Verse 8.
Yeah.
And being